All right, welcome to Talking Shop. We are today looking at the text for All Saints Day, which is technically All Saints Day observed, but it's the way we tend to do those. And so this is the Beatitudes, Matthew's Gospel, Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. And I think we'll have we're going to have some good conversation about the structure of the Beatitudes, how they lay out, and kind of that. But maybe find some good insights in how to see, maybe how to really tie this into All Saints Day, in a what it means to have these saints that have endured through the tribulation, those that have gone before us, that we're a part of, all that kind of stuff. I think this using this very familiar text actually gives us a lot of insight to speaking some comfort to our people, some cause to rejoice in a time when it feels like maybe you shouldn't rejoice, but yet we are not of this world, right? And so there is something greater. But anyway, take a moment to like and subscribe, and let's get after it.
Spit out my Lord in every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms.
All right, once more into the Beatitudes. Matthew chapter 5, 1 through 12. Seeing the crowds, he went up the mountain where he sat down. His disciples came to him. And in case you didn't know how speaking works, he opens his mouth and taught them. No, I always think it's funny when we translate that, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
He opens his mouth.
I think it's a slow motion moment.
He speaks, saying.
I'm pretty sure there's a link to Moses at Sinai there. I think that's why that language is there. Yeah,
kind of language.
And taught them.
All right. So let's get into it. What is the first thing he says? What's the first of our...
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for of them is the kingdom of heaven.
So let's clean that up. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is present tense, right? Kingdom of heaven.
Good catch.
I know when we talk about this... every time we do this text, which we do it a fair amount, this is a biggie. So, a couple things coming in. What do you get out of that blessing?
I know some translations put happy, but I think it's a lot deeper than that.
Okay.
At least how we understand happy.
Sure.
So they are humbled. They may not feel blessed. That's kind of important.
Okay.
Or think that they're blessed, but they are.
So okay, that's good. So it's not always necessarily what you see on the outside kind of thing, right? But I guess what I was trying to hint at was this notion of is this a call to action? Be poor in spirit and therefore be blessed, or is it a gospel proclamation of he is blessing those who are poor in spirit?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one lexicon is the implication of enjoying favorable circumstances.
Okay.
So that means the poor in spirit are blessed.
Are blessed. This is the state in which they are in.
Well,
right?
I think the estin there from Amy fits that, because just like in English, you can swap those two around, and so the poor in spirit are blessed.
Right. Right.
Because theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so the Beatitudes as a whole then are bookended with this present tense, the kingdom of heaven is yours now.
Yeah.
And in the middle, it moves to future. You get, they will be satisfied, they will, all these things, right? But this is, so it seems to me a very intentional play between what is yours now and what will be.
And it's from the opening salvo, countercultural. What you don't think is the case.
Yeah.
And this is the nature of the kingdom of heaven. It's going to turn the kingdoms of this world and its expectations on its head.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, without even like going any further in the, in the Beatitudes, I mean, right at the gate, you could do a whole sermon on this. Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Yeah, definitely.
Because guaranteed you have a congregation full of people that fit that bill.
Yeah.
Right.
And if they're not, you could make them that way.
You could get them there. Yeah. Right.
And also, I also like this one right off the bat. It tells you, it's like, don't judge other people if they're rich in spirit or poor in spirit, because regardless of whatever their level of faith is, their spirituality is, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And so I've heard other people come to me and say, oh, I don't think they're faithful enough or spiritual enough. And I'm like, how do you judge that? Like, what allows you to judge that? Because faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain. Right.
Well, and I don't think this is. I mean, we would go there, but this poor in spirit isn't talking about the blessing from God. Mm-hmm. It's talking about how a person finds themselves in their predicament in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Their current spiritual, you might say, tank is empty.
Yeah.
And so, and that's. And that comes, like I said, we can get them there. We should probably say by condemning them in their sin.
Yes, exactly.
Because somebody who's rich in spirit, in this case, somebody who is rich in spirit is somebody who's self-righteous. And so the poor in spirit is the person who, just coming off of Reformation, Luther. I'm not righteous. Sure. I'm not anything before God. I am poor in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jesus comes to that and says, "And yes, blessed are you because of that."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And to piggyback on that, I know. I think it was Dr. Jeff Gibbs who has a commentary on Matthew's Gospel. If you haven't checked that out, it's definitely worthwhile. But I think he argues that the Beatitudes work as this gateway into the Sermon on the Mount, which, to your point of being condemned by the law, and the result of that being poor in spirit, in essence, like, this sermon will get you there.
Yeah, if you read the rest of it,
you keep moving. And so, and he one time was describing it, and he said something like, it's like, so you're going along, you think you're doing all right, and at some point it kicks you out. Like, it's like, you get so beaten down, you've heard it said, but I say to you, right? And it's just like, it's honing in, and at some point you're like, I got nothing.
Right.
I'm poor in spirit.
Exactly.
And Jesus goes, blessed are you.
Blessed are you.
Right? Because of his proclamation, not because of their work.
Yeah.
So, all right. So there we go. We got the first one. All right. So, blessed are those who mourn. For what?
For they shall be comforted.
Right?
They shall be comforted. And I think you picked up on this, but the rest of them beyond that first one are all going to be futures.
Yeah. Until you get to
10.
Yeah.
So
they will be, shall, whatever, but it's pushing into the future. Blessed are the meek. For what?
They shall inherit the earth.
Yeah. So these great promises coming, future promises.
Wait, I thought the earth was just going to be destroyed and come to nothing and wasn't going to exist anymore. Not much of an inheritance. Oh, sorry, that's a world to come kind of thing. Sorry.
Yeah. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied.
And there's a nice contrast there with where we left off in Matthew, like chapter 22, where the Pharisees didn't hunger and thirst for righteousness because they already were, man. I'm already righteous.
Yeah.
But if you see yourself in light of verse 3 that we already looked at, then you're like, oh, I hunger and thirst because I lack it. Where am I going to get it? It's not for me. And that's when Jesus pulls out the prostitutes and tax collectors are going to get there before you righteous ones, hypocrites.
Or in another place he says, even what they have will be taken away from them. And so those who aren't hungry now will find themselves hungry because their source of comfort and sustenance will be gone.
Right.
And continuing what you were saying, it's like the Pharisees are constantly going after Jesus. And let's be honest, they're secretly wanting Jesus to affirm them. because they do recognize that he is a prophet of great power and comes from great authority, and so they're not satisfied because they, like you said, they already feel that they're righteous, and they're always hungering for more, to be righteous, more righteous. But then again, they're not getting that, they're not getting that fulfillment from Jesus.
And maybe they're hungering and thirsting, and maybe this is the play. They're hungering and thirsting for it in a different way. They're looking for a different satisfaction, or they're looking for their satisfaction now versus what Jesus says you will be satisfied.
And from within as opposed to without.
Right.
I guess it's kind of like money, right? Like, how much money is enough money?
Yep. Yep.
More.
Yeah.
Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy.
Do unto others as you want done unto yourself.
And blessed are the pure in heart. What is promised to them?
For they shall see God.
They shall see God.
Beatific vision.
This was brought up to at one of my Bible studies. Actually, we were working our way through this, and they said, "But only the pure in heart will see God." And they were thinking of the pure in heart as being perfect.
Right.
And so, what does it mean to be pure in heart? And I reminded them that David is a man after God's own heart. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Well, David did some terrible things.
Did a lot of naughty things."
And I said, yeah. And I said, what made him pure in heart, or what made his heart the same as God's, is that when he found himself there poor in spirit, he confessed his sins, and he went to, and so his heart, it wasn't that it was pure, but that you saw it for what it was. Right. And he confessed when that heart wasn't perfect. And so that still makes him pure, if that way, because going back up to the merciful, because when you confess and you turn to God, you find in God a God of mercy, and so you actually see God for who He is.
Yep.
When you're honest about your heart.
And forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
Yeah.
Where do we end up?
Blessed are the peacemakers.
Peacemakers, right. So they'll be called what?
The sons of God.
Sons of God, His own sons. And then you get back to present tense. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, as if all of this might be leading up to that. For what? Once again, present tense, theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
Right? So those two things kind of bookend all these Beatitudes. It's kind of a fun way to preach it, in using that sort of tension between what we would call like the now and the not yet, the present reality. This is yours now. Yeah. The blessings are spoken to you, even in your brokenness and these things, and yet there's this greater promise for those who strive continually throughout their lives, right?
Keep the faith.
And cling to what Christ has done. You can do it that way. But we're not quite done yet, because then you get verses 11 and 12, which really function as a explanation. I always saw it as like an explanation of verse 10.
Seems like it.
But it might be an explanation of the whole of the Beatitudes.
Sure.
Like if you get poor in spirit, and then those that are persecuted as your present tense, and this is all one thing, then 11 and 12 kind of work as, well, this is kind of what that is.
Yeah, because when you're reviled and persecuted, you find yourself poor in spirit. Yes. You find yourself mourning. As a follower of God, you find yourself meek. Humble. Yeah. That's we won't read it in this part of the Sermon on the Mount, but that's the turn the other cheek and go the extra mile and all of that. You are merciful because you're after the God's own heart. Your Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, kind of thing. You're pure in heart because you're asking for that fullness of God to be revealed, and you're seeking peace. You are all of those things when you're being persecuted for righteousness' sake.
And one thing I wonder on this is how much do we experience in our country as American Christians? Verse 11, when others revile you and persecute, do we really understand that? like the readers of that day did.
I think if American Christianity would step up and be what we're supposed to be, that is, open our mouths and actually speak the truth of God, we'd see it a lot more. And I think you see it when you do.
Yeah.
When you open your mouth and you speak out against some sort of social cause or something, and you're simply trying to speak the truth of God, you're going to find yourself persecuted.
Yeah.
You're gonna find yourself mourning, what you don't have there. So,
Right.
so I would say no, because we're not actually being the people of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a good summary of bringing that all together into verse 11, and then verse 12 then is this charge to rejoice, to celebrate, right? Because you have a greater treasure, right? Something greater beyond this age, beyond the sorrows and the persecution and the opposition, all that kind of stuff. And you are not alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, this is what's always happened to God's people.
Yeah.
Right? And so you are just kind of next in line,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
Going down that road.
And on All Saints' Day, we are celebrating and commemorating those who have been blessed before us and are continuing to be in that state of blessedness.
Yeah.
Probably more than we are.
Sure.
Still not to its fullness because Christ hasn't returned, but they know now what it is to be a little more satisfied. They definitely know what it is to be comforted.
Sure.
They're now chomping at the bit to inherit the earth. They're there. And we celebrate that.
I never thought about it. Maybe that's a good way to preach this on All Saints' Day. So really, maybe sort of hang your hat here at the end, and kind of pulling in that notion of the cloud of witnesses and all that kind of stuff. That we're not separated from them,
Right.
yet, either, and that there's something greater to come. This thing that we experience now. Dimly, things like that.
Yeah.
But there is a greater reality of it, in which we're part of a much larger kind of
Yeah, I like
train of witnesses and saints that have gone before us.
because that fits in more with the end of the church year.
Yeah.
Some of the passages from Revelation and the martyrs and the witnesses
Right.
standing around.
Yeah.
We know where it ends, and we know in whose company we are, and therefore that helps us endure ourselves to the end.
Yeah. And to bring in Revelation, the great cloud of witnesses is not those who fought in the Great Tribulation. They're not those who they're those who have simply come out of it. They're those who endured to the end, you might say.
Yeah.
Who stood fast in Christ and found themselves blessed by Him.
All right, good stuff there. Take a minute to like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Check out craftofpreaching.com. There will definitely be discussions there on this text and the others to help you on All Saints' Day. Leave any comments below that you might have on how you might tackle this, and God bless your preaching.